Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for April 14th, 2023. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating, and also present are Ralph Kohler, Aaron McHale, and Quinn Pham. And we've decided that with the alpha release of 10.1 coming out soon, we'd like to make sure we can finish off the tasks of rearranging the admin UI. So for the sake of the recording, let me start with a sample site, and I can also paste the link into the Zoom chat. As usual, the login is admin for these meetings. And where are we now? So in the structure menu, we still have block layout directly under structure, but I've been working on the issue to change that and move it under appearance, as we've been discussing. So that's the block layout page, which in 10.0 is the parent page for the custom block library, and that's the parent of block types, but we've already changed those. So also under structure is custom block types. And then under content, I'll open that in another tab. Under content, we have custom blocks. So that's where we are now. And the issue I'd like to start with is 3318549. Rename custom block terminology in the admin UI. And I think Ralph, Aaron, either one of you is probably a better person to summarize this issue than I
am. Basically, don't go into the merge request unless you have like 2 hours because it's huge. No, so it's basically making changes across Drupal so that a lot of them are just like changes in comments, code comments and things. Basically, what we're doing is taking, changing it so that instead of it saying like custom blocks, we're preferring the term content blocks, and the current most of that is done, but the current discussion, which I think it would be good to just get to sort of wrap up and just get a solid recommendation on, because we could go either way, I suppose, is for the block types. Should we refer to those in the interface as simply block types or block content types? And there's a few different sort of arguments either way, and I'm just going to literally read my comments on the merge request, because I think that, or the comments in that merge request, because I think it summarizes it quite well. So I basically said that so we're also looking at content block types, but that appearing next to content types, as you can see with custom block types, that could be potentially confusing for users.
So you're talking about in
types.
the admin menu,
where yes, under structure. Currently... So if you see where it's, so if it said like
1 second,
block content types.
Go ahead, Rob, please. Benji, I've pasted another link in the chat. I'm having a site running with the patch, the rename patch applied. That way it might be easier to discuss having the current state.
We can.
It isn't an umami page, it's just with a standard profile, but
well, that's actually good because it'll help us keep it straight.
Okay, the only confusing detail might be it's using admin tools, and that is still broken. Admin, just.
Yep. I will probably just use the standard toolbar. And but does admin toolbar affect this layout?
I think yes, it does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so maybe yeah. So so we have the current patch or the current merge request looks like it's as it is right now, it's got block content types.
Yes.
And so yeah, so the let me find where I was. So okay, yeah, so we thought content block content types yeah, it would be block content types could be quite good because we're drawing a parallel between under content, we now just say blocks. So Benji, if you could expand content, you might have to go into content because the admin toolbar adds those links, so it needs to be updated. But yeah, if
Oh no.
not this again.
No. Maybe flush all caches. Hopefully. Yep.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so you can see the tab is now simply blocks rather than custom blocks. So
or content blocks.
Content blocks.
Just blocks.
Right. Yes. And so we because with saying block content types, I think we can draw a parallel there between the blocks that appear under content, and people are probably used to thinking about like content types. I do wonder if there is a potential still for confusion between content types and block content types. The other option is just simply block types. And of course, that is nice and shorter. But then the thing we've got to be careful is that we don't confuse content blocks, which is what we're talking about, with the blocks that come with Drupal that are not content blocks, or the blocks that modules could provide that are provided by block plugins. So example of those are things like the site name block, menu blocks. Those are different. Those are types of blocks. They're not like, they're not block types in the sense of things you can create in the admin UI, but we also confusingly refer to those as blocks. So it's trying to find a way that doesn't imply that these block types or block content types are somehow related to the things you can add into regions, under the block layout. I realize this could get confusing. So that's kind of where I think the discussion is like, should we go with block types or should it be block content types, because that helps draw the parallel between these being content blocks. And Ralph, yeah, you have your hand up.
Yep, just one addition to your point. Initially, the suggestion you brought up was content block types. And that I was a bit of hesitant. It hasn't felt right, but I thought the consensus, but I'm in line with, it makes things more clear to the user either way, content block types or block content types. And when Lee brought block content types up, I thought the decision was more or less made, or the group was tending towards the 3-worded term, and therefore I gave my +1 for the block content type. But if Benji, if you could go to the block content types page itself, then you see the only problem I have with block content types or content block types, either way, having 4-worded terms inside a button is suboptimal. The goal should be 1 or 2 words based on, for example, the strategic writing for UX by Tori Podomayersky. And it's harder to read and to scan. For me, it's challenging. For example, add block content type to fully realize what it is. That's my only concern in regards of the 3-worded term. But again, the other way around, block type.
So let me try to focus the discussion a little bit. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Paolo Enrique Cota Starling, who's joined the meeting. And let's see if either Paolo or Quinn has questions. You understand what it is we're trying to resolve and what the issues are?
Hello, everyone. Actually, not, because I joined a little bit late. So I'm trying to first to read the issue that we are discussing here.
Okay, so let me show in the Umami tabs. I have what we currently have in Drupal 10.1, and in particular in the admin menu we have custom block types, which is now directly under the structure menu. That's a fairly recent change, but it's already in 10.1. And we're discussing what to call these. Should they be called blocks or custom blocks or content blocks or block content?
Well, I think we're past the custom blocks. That's not an option. It's yeah, it's
Right.
just it's really just a choice between block types or block content types, I think. Yeah.
Right. So Paolo, does that help?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let's focus on one page at a time in the admin UI. So where would we like to start?
I would suggest we stay on this screen. And I have a suggestion related to it. But if you could go back to the updated one, Benji, in the other tab. I couldn't help notice just how weird admin toolbar now looks now that we've it's obviously not updated to account for these changes, but that's not our problem. So I think definitely the way I'm looking at this is when you're under structure, block content types, I think makes a lot of sense, and the page title being block content types. But I wonder if then for the button text and the column, if we just say like add block type, or and below it the table column heading where it says instead of block content type, if we just said block type, and that might be that might work better.
I was going to suggest something even more radical.
Oh.
If we already have block content types in the page title, and Ralph points out that the ideal is to have one or two words in the button, let's make it add type.
You know, I like that, and the other reason I like it is because we can establish a pattern across structure for everything. We could just be like add type, and that could be add content type, add block content type, add media type. All those buttons could just say add type.
Yeah.
And
so I think that's definitely worth considering, but I think the more important question is what to use in the admin menu. Is it block content, or is it content block, or is it just block? So Ralph, shortly before the meeting started, you were talking about a strategy for asking questions, and maybe we could test that here with Paolo and Quinn, who haven't previously thought about these questions a lot.
We might, yeah. If I could quickly share my screen, I have screenshots taken to illustrate.
Go ahead.
Yep. You see my screen?
Yes.
So basically, it's a sample content test setup. So a basic question: which word would you use to describe the group of people who support and oversee several field locations, such as the locations in a region? And the word choices are upper field in 2 words, field leaders in 2 words, not sure, or other. And second is, tell us why you choose this answer. If you choose other, why would you use this word instead? Walk us through your thinking. And the reasoning behind the 1-2 punch is called start with a quantitative question, multiple choice or scale question, the what, and follow it with an open-ended question to get qualitative feedback, the why. And that way, which words would you use? The person got 77 responses and added a pie chart to visualize. It isn't not statistical significant, but still you get a direction in which you can go. And based on the qualitative questions, you have a bit content to chew through, but you get more in-depth reasoning and ideas that way.
Okay, so what are the 2 questions we want to ask for this issue? What's the quantitative question we want to ask about block content or content block or just block? And what's the follow-up question? So I was hoping not to put this into practice and not just describe the methodology.
If it's about the term itself, the choices might be block type, content block type, block content type, not sure, and other. That would be the straightforward.
Okay, so let's start with that. And do you want to show the screen in the admin UI?
Second.
And Quinn and Paolo, I hope you don't mind being the subjects of this survey.
Yep.
Shall I update in the DevTools the titles?
Let me type into the chat
Okay.
block content types as one option and content block types as a second, and block types as a third, and then not sure and other. Are those the right choices?
Yes.
Okay.
I just I'm not sure if this related to this issue, but I remember as when I first started with Drupal, I found it confusing when the term block content type versus content type and block type, because for me, when I see block content type, I'm thinking either relate to the content I'm going to create or is related to the content types below that, the menu below that. So I'm still not sure how to address this.
That's a
I'm
great
just thinking
point.
about for the beginner, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's exactly why I'm encouraging people who haven't been thinking about this issue to give their opinions, because that's the perspective we need. Yeah, I don't think anyone else has made that point, that putting the word content next to the word types all by itself is produces some confusion. So Quinn, can you choose and do we want to talk in terms of the admin menu for now? Ralph, could you show the admin menu?
Yep, 1 second.
So let's just have this really focused question. We're looking at the admin menu. Currently right at the top under structure, it's currently block content types. And you've got these 5 choices. The first choice is block content types, exactly what it has there. The next one is content block types, not sure or other. Quinn and Paolo, are you willing to give us your responses?
Raj, will you move your screen a little bit? has been cut off for me. I don't know for everyone. I don't see the left menu. Thank you. Yes.
Great. Okay.
So this is for 10.1, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm still not sure, Benji.
Okay, well, that's one of the options. Not sure.
Right.
Can you rule out any of them?
I would go with block types.
Me too.
Cool. And then the follow-up question is the open-ended one. Do we just ask why, or do we make it a little more guided than that, Ralph?
Why? Because block type give me the direct meaning is a type of block. It's not giving me the impression that it is the block content, something related with content. So that's why I choose block types.
So to distinguish it from content types. Is that fair summary?
Yeah. When I started working with Drupal, I was confused too about it. And I think block types is shorter and meaningful, so it's like type of blocks, you're adding a new type of block. It's, I think the word content between block and types can make people get confused.
Okay, thank you. Let me make a few points here. One is that there is not going to be a perfect solution. And we have these problems with terminology, and there's no perfect solution. Like the word content already is so overloaded. And then the word block is so overloaded. So we're not going to solve all of the problems. We just have to find the best compromise. Go ahead, Ralph.
Just one follow-up question to Paulo. You said block content types creates potential confusion for you. And is it the same for content block types as well?
Content block types. Let me think 1 second. I think it's better, but I still prefer block types.
Okay.
I think that's
Thank you.
it.
Okay, a few other things to consider are that block content types is currently the longest item in this menu at its level, and shortening it to block types would change that. And also think about where it gets alphabetized. I guess it's currently at the top. If we change it to block types, it would still be at the top. If we were to change it to content block types, that would push it down right above content types. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks. It's really interesting hearing the perspective there, and something that, as you said, we I hadn't really thought too much about that in that particular, how you could, the word content and types together could cause any confusion. Actually, I would say after hearing that, I probably now changed to thinking that block types is better, and that the fact that, yes, we have blocks in another context, like those things that, like a site name block and other things. But when you're here as a user, you're not really thinking about those. You're thinking, okay, I can add a block type, and then I can use it by going to content and then blocks, and I can create a block of that type, and I can put that block inside content, or I can use it inside layout builder. So actually that is a really strong indicator for me that, and again, because it's shorter, the block types is probably the way to go. And I think actually, I might be wrong, but I think that is what it was actually originally labeled.
Yes, yes.
So maybe we should just, yeah, stick with calling it block types.
But do you know why was it changed? Do you have an idea?
The initial name was custom block type. It was renamed to block type in the rename issue, but then a few weeks ago, the suggestion came up to make it more clear to name it content block types. And then a few days ago, the suggestion came up to go instead with block content types. But still, yeah, there are pros and cons, as Aaron said, and as we've seen now. And yeah, maybe going with block types, it's more neutral, but still it provides the initial context, and maybe it might be worth to make the differences between those core blocks provided by core in code, as well as those coming from contrib modules, more clear.
Ralph, could you open up the block layout page, maybe in a separate tab?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah.
And the reason for not calling it simply blocks, but calling it either content block or block content is to distinguish it from these blocks, which can include content blocks, but also include blocks provided by modules. And if you click on the place block button, right, there are blocks that come from views, there are blocks that come from core or forms, and somewhere on this list there should be, oh,
System.
I guess you would, right, since you're using the standard profile, you don't have any custom blocks pre-installed, but if we were looking at Umami, we would see some custom blocks here as well. So that's the confusion we're trying to avoid by adding the word content, that there are these blocks which include the content blocks, and we want to avoid confusion there. And that's sort of what I was getting at when I was saying we're not going to find a perfect answer. If we do go with block types, then there is potential for confusion here. And layout builder, yes.
Yeah. There's also because content blocks in layout builder are different to the content blocks over here in content. Those are reusable. Those in layout builder are inline blocks, basically. And yeah, then there's also a follow-up issue or a postponed issue at the moment dealing with the naming of those as well. But the block types apply to both in layout builder as well as in content.
So fellow has to leave. Thanks for joining us. Can we go back to yes, this page? And let's ask the same questions now, but instead of thinking about the admin menu, think about the page title, which is currently block content types. And same question as before, but the context is different. So do we have the same answer or not? Same choices: block content types, content block types, not sure, or other. Quinn, do you have an opinion there?
See, when I look at this menu issue, I'm thinking about content editor versus admin. I mean, super admin. So I'm trying to figure out what is best for both. And yeah, I'm not sure. Benji.
So this page typically would not be accessible to the content editor. It's under the structure menu. This is where you manage the custom block types or content block types. And that's something that a content editor doesn't normally do.
Right. We do have several level of content editor. One can have semi admin rights, and some it's just anyway. So for this case,
Oh no, the permissions page.
Yeah, but that's the, so you are able to give dedicated permissions for that page.
I mean, I guess it seems to me that if the context is well established, like here we're under structure, and if we're on the block layout page where we're under appearance, and if we're looking at the block layout, the custom block library, or whatever we call it now, we're under content. If the context is sufficiently clear, then we don't need to worry about distinguishing blocks that are content from blocks that are configuration. And if the context is clear, we can just call them blocks. That's my opinion. Now, there's a big if there. Is the context sufficiently clear? And we can add we can ask the same question here. So we have the page title, we have the tab, we have the button to add a new one. So like the page title, we are under content. We're now listing the blocks. They're currently actually, Ralph, why don't you, or I can do that since you shared the link. I will add a block content, but start with the page title. Should it be? Thank you. The page title, should we keep it content blocks or should we take one of the other options?
In this case, I like to keep it at the content blocks because it's give me the idea of editing the contents using text field or CK editor or whatever. So content blocks would fit well in this case.
Right. And also I should point out that we are now looking at a page that content editors are more likely to see. And right, where we might be editing this with CK editor. That's exactly right. Ralph, Aaron, do we want to ask about the button or the table labels or anything like that?
As you mentioned it in regards of the table labels, currently there's an inconsistency. If you take a look, you have block type over here, while on the block content types page, it's block content type.
So I'm now very, well, I won't say very, but I'm feeling more confident that under structure, referring to them as block types is okay. And Benji, you made a good point about the context. And if you think about when you're under content, you're adding, well, content, media blocks. And when you're in structure, you're adding types of those things. So I think like the user is probably used to saying, okay, I go to structure to add a content type, or I go to structure to add a media type. Therefore, I go to structure to add a block type. And that's probably provides enough of a connection there, because usually one of the first things you do on a site anyway is add your content types. So you're already kind of thinking about it in that context. And whereas before I was concerned about the potential confusion, if we just refer to these as block types, the potential confusion between the things that you can access under like block layout. But again, I don't actually think that's really a problem, because again, if you go to the place block button there, Ralph.
Yeah.
We talk about those as categories, and you should now see your well, that's interesting. In there it says custom for one of those blocks, so that's somewhere we would need to update. But there we could potentially,
yeah, that's the one I've just created.
Yeah, that should probably be changed there. So instead of it saying custom, it says like content or content block. So that's somewhere else.
No,
But
yeah, content block would be good, or just content.
Yeah, yeah, because we describe those as categories, not types. So there's a distinction there that when you add a type, a block type, you can use that when creating a block of content. But when you're here, you're seeing these categories like core blocks, forms, help, views, and you're a bit, the context is a bit broader there. So you think, oh, I can go and when I'm in views, I can create these blocks that are like, they're like views. When I come here, I see that they're labeled as views. So my previous concerns about any confusion there, I think, is I don't have those concerns now. I'm not sure how well I articulated that, but I think I'm comfortable with block types now.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a good point about category versus type, and that's a difference that's worth preserving.
Yes, I'm going to make a
Yes.
note that that's elucidated.
Sorry, Quinn, what did you say?
I said yes, because we want beginner to get to know Drupal is faster and easier, but the word block has been used in all over with different meanings. So I wish we have something, some replacement that makes sense and easier for a beginner. So that's where we can drive more people to Drupal.
That is certainly the goal. The question is how to get there.
Well, while we're on the screen, Quinn, I guess again to pose a similar question to you, where we see the block that Ralph created called one block, and it's next to it, it says custom. What would you call that? Would you call that just a block, or would you rather it said just content or content block?
I would at least give more details. I know short is better per UX perspective, but a little bit more detail for beginner. So I would probably add more custom something. I can't think of anything right now, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe then in that case, content block, because that's what we're kind of calling them in under the content section. So maybe there we should be using content block as the category.
Yeah.
Because it has the words, both the words content and block there. It's affirms that what we're
I
calling
vote is
it.
for just content.
But see, if we just have content, could that be confusing if you think, well, if I go to like admin content and creates a piece of content, can I then add it there? Like, we do want to be clear that you have to create a content block to be able to add it there, right?
Yep.
I think you've got it backwards. You're being presented with a list, and we're trying to say what the category of this item on the list is. And you're taking it from the other point of view. How do I get something onto this list?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first question is what we need to address in this column. Once something is on the list, how do you identify it?
Oh yeah, that's a good point, because you wouldn't see it before you've created it, right? So if you don't have any, by default, there are no blocks created. So you wouldn't see it to know that it was here. There's an argument that we probably should have some help text that hey, you can go over here to create a custom block or a content block, but that's a different that's oh no, there's a button right there. Oh, look at that. Okay.
But one other detail I'm sort of confused with is those categories aren't explained anywhere, and having for one core and on the other hand system.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference?
And some are capitalized and some are not.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a problem too. But let's try it.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, thank you for that.
issue.
Let's worry about that some other day.
Yeah. Yeah, but basically, if you have core, custom, and system, it's confusing and not very clear. The others, menu, lists, views, help, forms, it's all sort of clear. But those three, and users also
the
clear.
core and the system, that's what I think you should change it.
Ralph, can you let me share my screen now?
Yep.
I think it's time to move on to some of the related issues. Give me a minute to find. Yeah. So I actually, the issue we've been discussing, again, it's 3318549, rename custom block terminology in the admin UI. I'm not sure that absolutely has to be done before the alpha release. And there are some other issues that do. So let's see.
Sorry, just before we go on, I just want to, because I was capturing a couple of notes, so I've got 3 key points. I just want to make sure that we're clear and there's nothing missing there, because I'm gonna I'm happy to post something on there. That the first one is that calling them content blocks is okay. We're happy with that. The next point I captured is the words content and types together are potentially confusing and make the user, think about content types. And then the last one, which we just saw, is that the category should not say custom. It should say content. Or did we say, yeah, just content? It was just content, wasn't it?
That was my opinion.
I think that's, yeah, okay. Cool, okay.
And can you add to the list that if the context is clear, then we can afford to use the shorter terminology?
Yeah.
And I think that applies in the admin menu. If you're under content, if you're under structure, the context should be clear.
Yeah, and we've kind of done that with under content where the tab is just blocks. So yeah, that's a good point.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
So there's another issue.
Is it that one, the
Oh, maybe it's actually another point on the same issue. So let me have a look at the proposed resolution. So is this part of the proposed resolution at all controversial? Change the route from admin content block content to admin content block. That's decided, and it's just a question of implementing it now, right?
I think that's been done, and actually that's one of the reasons that we really want this to land in 10.1 is because that avoids us having to set up another redirect.
Yes. How did we get those two changes into the same issue? I thought we sort of didn't we separate, but anyway. All right, so it's the path change that means it has to be done before the alpha, which is now less than 2 weeks away. And what's really hanging it up is what the issue title says and what we've been talking about. Okay, I understand now. So let's see. So the sort of the two issues I've been working on recently are that the breadcrumb for block content entities is not useful, and that's issue 2317981. And maybe just looking at the screenshots is enough. So the current state of affairs is that when you're editing custom block, the path is block/5 and breadcrumb is just home, which is not at all useful. If you're looking at the delete form, you have home and then you have the page in the previous screenshot. After this issue, we have a much longer breadcrumb because we've changed the path. So we get the breadcrumb home administration content custom blocks.
I had a little giggle to myself when I first saw those screenshots because I thought I knew exactly when you took those screenshots. It was after the last usability meeting that I was at.
Okay. So yeah, I've done some work on this. I think it's pretty close. We're sort of in the weeds about creating the redirects if someone happens to have a bookmark for the old URL, getting them redirected to the new one. Is there anything worth discussing on this?
I guess the only thing is that's in the back of my head with this is I think it was because I created this issue but I know it's went through several rounds of changes, so I think it was me that proposed that we just change the paths rather than like trying to do something with breadcrumb, fundamentally change the paths of blocks. And I'm aware that that is kind of deviating from what we do for media or other things in core, but I was hopeful that it could start to set a precedent where we provide more useful breadcrumbs for other things like media. Block is a special case because you can't, you never view a block on its own in the front end, whereas you could with media, and you certainly do with nodes and taxonomy and other things. So in a way, this is a good case for setting a precedent that breadcrumbs should be more useful across the board. And we should find ways to do that. And I don't know how we then translate this to other things that do actually need to have a front end view but also like this backend admin type view.
So I think you didn't actually create this issue. It was created by Andy Post in 2014.
Oh, was it?
But
I might
agree
have
with
done a lot of updates to it then. I have a feeling like, because those screenshots, some of the screenshots are definitely ones I created, and I do remember like posting a lot of that issue summary text that's right there.
Yeah, I agree with that, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're the one who put it on the current track, saying that we should not be overriding the breadcrumb. We should be changing the path and using the standard breadcrumbs. So
it's all my fault.
and the other issue I've been working on recently is 331.8112 to move block layout from structure to appearance. And I've already referred to this. And I'll just have a quick look at the screenshots. Currently, block layout is in the admin menu directly under structure. And the proposal is to put it under appearance and make corresponding changes to the path. And again, I think this one is pretty close to being done, except for the details of the redirects.
Only one slight detail we've touched last week already. Would it make sense in that follow-up issue, or I'm not sure how complicated it is to change it in the issue, to change the order of the tabs, what we've said, moving the update to the right. So it reads list, block layout, settings, update.
Yeah, technically it would be easy to put update at the end. It's a question of scope. Yeah, I suppose I could update the merge request to do that, and if the reviewers complain that it's out of scope, I can take it out. But technically, it's a very easy change.
I think the placement of the block layout tab itself is probably still in scope. So like putting that before update, because you're just setting the weight of that tab, is assuming that the weights are assuming that the weight of update isn't 0. But that's probably doable. Personally, I would say like if we wanted to move update after settings, we probably should do that in a separate issue.
Yeah, I really want to have block layout next to settings, because those are the two that have the consistent sub-tab structure.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I put it there.
Yes, I like this setting too, because it belongs to the grouping designing group, appearing next to the layout, block layout, but it's create more steps when, for example, if you want to add some block and you want to see what is the layout, you have to go back to the appearance, and it just, yeah, it's a pro and cons.
Okay, so I think the important thing is to get this issue done. So we really have to resolve this long-running debate about whether to make it block or block content or content block. And I think we've made a lot of progress on that. Who's going to be moving the issue forward? Is this something that I need to get into the code on, or Aaron, will you?
I'm gonna comment on the issue, because there were I was the one who started the threads that resulted in this. Yeah, I'll do that. I think I don't remember who exactly was it Stephen that was actually doing changes, I think.
Sure.
So
Probably.
yeah. Have you done anything in this issue? I'm just wondering if we have someone who can RTBC it, because I wouldn't feel comfortable RTBCing it after being as in getting into some of these threads.
Well, searching for my name on the page, it looks like I have not made any comments at all on this. So yes, I'm available to review this.
Excellent. Okay, I'll I guess ping you when it's ready.
Thank
So
you.
the suggestion would be basically to move it back from block content type to block type. And so basically reverting the latest commit by Stephen.
Yeah, and I think it was only updated on the right now on one place, so it should be quick to revert that. It was kind of pending the discussion being resolved.
Okay, we are running up against the end of the hour. I think it was great to have this discussion, and let's try to get this issue finished off as soon as we possibly can.
Yep.
And
Cool.
one small detail, the other issue, I'm not sure if that has to be ready for Alpha 1, but the help page 1 might be also important, especially in particular with reverting back to block type, making it more clear in that help text, the difference between the different content blocks might be useful and necessary.
If it's not changing paths, then it's not blocking other issues, and it can probably be done after the alpha comes out.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Any last words? Thank you all, and I will be here again next week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you,
weekend.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Yep, bye-bye.